America, I hope you're ready for more out-of-control radical policies. Democrats barely squeaked out a win in Nevada to keep control of the Senate, and now they think it means that they have a mandate to shove their outrageous progressive policies down our throats.
This victory belongs to Joe Biden. It belongs to Joe Biden and the Democrats who got out there and fought for working people. The things we did were important and popular.
Joe Biden's approach and agenda were exactly the things that we needed in this country, and that's what people voted for.
I predicted the young people were going to vote for us. Why? We focused on climate, which they really care about.
There is no question that this will be the most progressive Democratic caucus in decades.
But do they not realize the Democrats are still expected to lose the House? Maybe the liberal cheerleaders need to listen to the guy they're all praising.
I think we're going to get very close in the House, but I think it's going to be very close, but I think we're going to make it.
Even the mainstream media thinks it would have been worse for Democrats if Biden had emerged from the basement on the campaign trail.
No doubt it's such a good night for Biden. However, it does seem when you look at the exit polls that Democrats prevailed in spite of him, not because of him necessarily. I mean, CNN exit polls show that 49% of voters who said they somewhat disapprove of Biden voted for Democrats, while 45% backed Republicans. So, I mean, you see Biden, he's sat off on the campaign trail in a lot of these key races. He wasn't making these big campaign pushes. He wasn't front and center, and that seemed to help Democrats.
Jessica Tarlov, do Democrats have a mandate?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's to continue governing, to at least have control of the Senate and the House. Biden is right. I think we'll be down 2 or 3 seats. But it's a strange idea that after pulling off something of historic proportions, when you look back through history, this was an incredibly good night for Democrats that were expected to then turn around the next day and be like, oh, we're so terrible, we're so terrible. The American people didn't say, oh, you're so terrible. They said, actually, Republicans, especially ones who denied the outcome of the election or aligned with Donald Trump, that you're so terrible. I looked back at the Real Clear Politics projections. The GOP was supposed to be sitting on 54 seats right now. 49, right? And we have a very good chance of taking Georgia as well. People got this wildly wrong. And I think it is very unfair for anyone to think that people who ended up defying historical expectations should then turn around and kind of bow down to a party that managed to bungle something like this. And I understand Kevin McCarthy is going to be challenged for the leadership. I don't know if anyone else can get over the 50% there, but there is no way that Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy managed this well. I mean, there were people talking about Patty Murray losing her seat. It's completely ridiculous.
Do I owe you money?
You do.
How much do I owe you, Jessica?
You owe me $100 and you owe Geraldo $1,000.
Okay, here you go. I'm not sure if I'm still going to pay Geraldo, but
you have to.
There's $100 for you.
That's like big.
It's very fancy. It's real.
All right, okay, let's get
Smells
over.
like
Okay,
victory.
stop. All right, enough. What do you think the Democrats are saying? Oh, this is so progressive. We're the most progressive.
Oh,
yeah. The country didn't vote for a more progressive Democrat party.
Look, the Democrats are taking this as a mandate. And the way Jessica sees it and the way the Democrats see it is a mandate. This will be the most progressive next 2 years that we've ever seen. And that's great for 2024. But what's crazy about all of this is you have one of the most unpopular presidents in history. You've got incredible problems with inflation, with the economy, with Afghanistan. Everything about what we've been through for the last 2 years has been a nightmare. And I'll tell you what won this election for the Democrats. Sure, the young people came out and voted. They got paid. I mean, they got the student loans paid back. It was a buyout. I mean, that's what happened with them. But the other thing is abortion. It was all about abortion. Joe Biden didn't do abortion. Abortion just kind of fell out of the Supreme Court for whatever reason in May or June of this year. And that was it. That's all the Democrats needed. Now, they're going to beat their chests. They're going to say, well, it's because we're so great. Joe Biden, what a leader. America hates him. Okay? And that's all I have to say.
Okay, Greg, do you remember in 2018 those midterms?
I don't remember anything past last week.
Let me jog your memory. Donald Trump's Republican Party actually added a bunch of seats in the U.S. Senate and lost about 40 in the House. So they actually did better in those midterms than Biden did in these.
Yeah, and you could argue, you could argue, and I think it's a clear argument that Republicans are better off now that they have the House. So isn't that a mandate? I mean, I don't know. But I think what the judge is saying is correct. The actual historic moment wasn't this election. It was Roe v. Wade being overturned. And it's kind of interesting that the Dems are still going to lose the House. And it should have been worse. It should have been worse, but it wasn't. But that is because the Supreme Court expended the political capital that was built for decades to overturn Roe v. Wade. That was baked into the cake, right? So the hill that the right chose to die on was Roe v. Wade. And this might have been the right time to do it because they still got the House. We don't know. But I think that, this is an achievement. I mean, what's the point? What's the point of building political power if you don't spend it?
Yeah.
Right? So that's what made this so close, is that, if you were a constitutionalist and a pro-lifer, you should be very happy stepping back and going, after this election, going, wow, it didn't go as good as I wanted, but there's Roe v. Wade being overturned, and we got the House in spite of that. And I was willing to die on that hill because that hill is made of millions of unborn children. So I should be willing to fight for that, long-term, short-term, decades. So if you're just looking too close at the trees, you're not seeing the forest. Jessica's right. This came down, you said it last week. This is about abortion. Everybody takes it seriously, including the people that took four decades to get to this point. Mm-hmm. And I think there may be consequences for the Republican Party for ongoing. But the thing is, there's going to be part of the Republicans that say, so what? Mm-hmm. This is when you have to expend that capital. What's the point? What's the point of being a political party?
That was a very good analysis.
Why, thank you.
Very excellent, Greg. I hadn't thought about that way. So Joe Biden doesn't go campaign at all for anybody. What does that tell you about his political capital?
I think that it means that I think that they just had a good strategy. They had a good strategy in 2020. They used COVID as an excuse to not campaign. It didn't really bother him that he was campaigning in Delaware and Maryland and New York. And I think that pro-life people vote too. Mm-hmm. And there are going to be an increasing number of these state referendums that are going to happen. But if you think about look at the governor of Ohio, there's some strict abortion restrictions in Ohio. He won. So did Ron DeSantis.
Rand Paul.
Well, Ron DeSantis in Florida wins big time as a governor there. There's a statewide issue there. Georgia, Brian Kemp. So the abortion issue was more complicated for Republicans in the New England states in particular, and also in Michigan. That's where there was Wisconsin. And there was a state referendum, at least Ron Johnson won, though. But in Michigan, for example, they had the University of Michigan had students lined up all around the block. And an initiative like that, or a referendum like that, can drive people to the polls. And Jim Messina, who's a Democratic guy for Obama, he was on our show, Newsroom, and he said, if I have anything to do with it, I'm going to make sure that those state referendums are on all the other states in 2024. Well, why would they do that? So when it comes to the Senate, I think there's 33 seats up. In 24 of the seats, the Democrats are going to be on the defense. So they're going to need an issue. So we'll have to consider all of that going forward. But I would also say the Republicans might be disappointed. They did win some good things. They kept some governor's mansions that were important to them. They also increased with Latinos, Asian Americans, and Black Americans. And you're not going to win all of those groups all at once, but they found a foothold and they continue to gain there. So I think that they'll do that. Also, I would say there's not going to be a mandate for either side, I don't think. I think there will be gridlock. And gridlock is okay.
I love gridlock. I love it.
Except for when you go home.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
The irony.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.